Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. This is our first Tech Connect being moved to a lunchtime window, and looking forward to carrying that part forward. It's also our first hybrid, so we have a couple of people in the office with me here, and we're looking forward to hearing what Scott has to share with us today. So we will go, I'll just say, since it's just a few of us, I have Maisie from Opportunity Stanislaus here. I actually think you can kind of see her today. And Dory, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dory from Bay Valley Tech. I handle the PR for them as well as student onboarding, community outreach, that kind of thing.
And I'm Trish Christensen, President and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce. And Felicia?
Hello, my name is Felicia Lopez. I am the events coordinator at the Modesto Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. And with that, Scott, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, and I'll run your slides for you. Just let me know when to click.
Okay. I'm Scott Davison with GSD Solutions, and I have a slide in here that's my introduction, so I'll skip that and we'll move on to that when I get there. First, I want to say hello and welcome to everyone to the Tech Connect series at the Modesto Chamber of Commerce. I'll hit the next slide. The series today was the Modesto Chamber of Commerce and GSD Solutions kind of bringing this together, and today we're going to bridge the gap for technology for small businesses. So we're going to go through what a technology stack would look like for a small business and how we can put that together, what that looks like to show for small businesses. So go ahead and get the next slide. I did a little slide here on the Modesto Chamber of Commerce, and the Modesto Chamber of Commerce was founded in 1912, according to your website. They're between 7 and 8, about a little over 800 members pre-COVID. They're about 700 members now. I just got this updated information a few minutes ago from Trish. Is that right, Trish? Okay. And then their main goal is cares, and you can go look on their website and kind of the community and how they relate to the community. And obviously this series is about to bring the community, about the tech community together. So that's kind of what they're looking for. And there's their website, modchamber.org. Go check it out. They have a great website, and they have a very, very high domain score, just so you guys know. It's about 41. So anyway, if you want to get backlinks, talk to them about getting on their website. So a little about me. I've been working in IT for about 18 years. I co-founded GSD Solutions, what is now GSD Solutions, about 6 years ago. It was a former company called Suite IT. We were focused on the hotel industry previously, and then we named it GSD Solutions. Our name stands for Get Stuff Done. So that's what it is. It's very simple. We have a team of about 9 in Modesto and the Bay Area. We focus on businesses and nonprofits from about 5 to about 200 size. That's our size. And I went to the University of Wyoming and have a degree in finance. So I do not have an IT degree. I have a background in IT because I've been working in it for so long, and I also have some certifications. But the University of Wyoming is my university, so go Pokes!
All right.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to break down what it looks like, the technology gap. And one of the things that in small businesses is you'll find is they have something done here, something's done there, something's done over here, and nobody really understood what was done. So then the owner is then head of responsibility, or they're, those are things. So the first thing is to start is like get their technology stack in one, to understand what's going on. And then second of all, what training is needed to fill those trainings. Go ahead.
I don't know what changed. He got it. Go ahead. Okay.
And just understand like how those technologies are, how we can fill those gaps, and like what that looks like in a small business. And many people in small businesses, like you'll read something, somebody will say X, Y, and Z, and you won't really fully understand it. And then you'll just go out and do it. And then you'll be like, okay, I don't really know how to make this all work. And a great example of that is actually the room that we're in. They, piecemealed a few things together. They have, a camera here, they have a camera there. It's just like they're trying to piecemeal it together because there was nobody coming to give a solution. So, those are things that we're going to try to fill today, and it's going to be on a high level, but we'll talk about that as we move forward. So go ahead and next slide. The first thing we're going to talk about is a website and a custom domain. And it's the next slide.
It's not moving. The arrow is not responding.
Okay. Yeah, because it probably wouldn't just Zoom.
Got it. Thank you.
Is a website and then a custom domain. And many of us have a website, or have So like I said, modchamber.org or SBDC.org, like these things are all top level domains. That's what that's called. So our domain is gsdsolutions.io. You can purchase a domain from Namecheap, GoDaddy. These are all name a few. They'll cost you about between $10 and $18. That's what the top level domain will cost you. And this is really important for your brand. It's to make sure your brand is like, you're selling your brand as like GSD Solutions, modchamber.org, like SBDC. So I can't say, I always get tripped up.
Small Business Development Center.
Small Business Development Center. Okay.
Yes, BDC.
But that's so those are the domain you want to buy. You want to make sure you get a domain, the top level domain, so you can make sure that you can sell your brand and it ties who you are. I use the example right here, modestobeer.org, or sorry, modesto.beer. And like, there's many top level domains of like .beer, .org, .io. There are all sorts of different ones. If your business is .bakery, you can do .bakery. I think there's .bakery as well. So just look and see what they have out there. This will be a good way for you to sell your business. It also looks good on your business card because people ask you questions and they'll question things. The other thing is also get a professional website. Use Wix, use Squarespace, hire a local digitally marketing firm, but get a real website. Make sure you have something on the presence. So when somebody Googles you, you're there. When I talked about the domain level score of 41 for your Modesto Chamber, like this will backlinks. You can backlink your website. I'm no digital marketer. I will not pertain to me, but make sure you have a professional website, because that when somebody Googles you, you're real. And like, that's, as a business, small business, those are things that like a lot of small businesses are missing, is they don't have a website. I go in there and I'm like, so what's your website? And they're like, oh, I don't have one. I'm like, Squarespace and Wix are $10, $15 a month, and you get a professional presence. So those are really important things. So the next slide we're going to talk about is professional email. One of the things, no more Gmail and Yahoo accounts for your business. Just get rid of it. The important part of this is it dilutes your brand. Like, so I just talked about like our emails are GSD Solutions, so when I send out an email, they know who I am all the time. When I send an email out from scottdavison@gmail.com, they don't know who that is. They don't know what brand that's from. So that dilutes your business, your brand, and making sure that always ties to it. So if somebody looks at they know who you are, it authenticates you, those kind of things. Picking from Google or Office 365, both of these are very good platforms, and they're either between, I don't know, it's like about $15 per person per month. And this will get you personal email, get you file server, it'll get you communication platforms. It's a big suite of services. If you pick with Microsoft, you get the Office suite as well, which obviously we're using PowerPoint here. So you can get these different offerings. And the other thing I want to tell people is, like, on your email, put your signature. Like, this is a great time for a market, like when you market yourself, it's like, have your signature. Like, we're having this event here, have your signature saying Tech Connect is every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Change your signature to the time of what's happening. Or if you have a sale going on, if you're a bakery or you're a restaurant, happy hours at 4 to 7, have that in your signature. Because that way somebody knows what's going on and they'll look at that. I mean, that's because a lot of times when people like Google, like, another thing I always tell people is, it's a great custom, your CRM that you pay all these big money for. How often do you actually enter those information in? How often do you forget to enter that information in? You guys probably do it a lot because you actually mind those things.
We do.
Yeah. So, but most people in the small businesses don't have time to do that. So what they do is but that information is all in the signature. So their phone number, their office, their address, and the events that are happening. So it's a really good place. Your signature is a really good place for that. So Google, Microsoft, make sure I can't reiterate the top point more enough, is when I see a business card of a business owner with a Gmail or Yahoo account, I'm like, come on, like, go do that. It doesn't cost you a lot of money. So go ahead to the next slide. Okay, file sharing. So back to the other point. Don't use your desktop or your laptop as your file server. This is not a secure location. And it's also, what happens if you lost your laptop? What happens if you lost your, like your desktop crashed? Like, you lose all your files. This is not a good location. The cloud is meant for us. It's very easy to set up. It's very good for us to have. Google Workspace is back to the other part of the suite of Google. Google Workspace has Google Drive. It's fantastic. You can do shared drives. So like, I can set up a shared folder. I can have many people work in it, even people internally and externally. And then I can also have people that are only internal work in that. Google Drive is a fantastic product. And you don't have to use Google Sheets or OneNote. Google Docs.
Oh,
Is that what it is?
Well, that's like the Word doc.
Yeah, Word doc.
Yeah, Google Docs.
Google Docs or Google Sheets or what's PowerPoint? Slides. Sorry, I use Microsoft. You can tell. Yeah, but you don't have to use those. If you're an Excel, Word, PowerPoint person, you can use those. You can use those with Google Drive. You don't have to use. You can intermingle. So people always think when they think Google Drive, they think, oh, I can only use Google products. That is not true. So make sure you understand that. And like when somebody tells you that, you can say, hey, wait, you can actually use Excel and Word and Excel. But I would definitely not recommend you using Outlook with Google Workspace. If you're going to go to Google Workspace and you're going to use Gmail as your email, use Chrome. Chrome is the best for that world. In Office 365, they have SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive. They're both, all three are file sharing products. None of them are the best, but they all handle file sharing and they all handle, you can put things in the cloud. I'm actually, this presentation is actually in OneDrive. When I save it, it automatically saves to the cloud. I don't have to do any interaction. So everything on my computer, this Mac that's sitting in front of you here, is automatically synced up to my OneDrive. So I save a file, it automatically syncs up. So it makes it very easy for me to like keep my files in the cloud. I don't have to think about stuff. There's others out there, Dropbox. Many of us probably have a Dropbox account for photos or family members or whatnot. Another one is Box. It's very much on the enterprise level, the higher level. So in a small business, like their price point starts at I think $25. So it's pretty pricey as far as, there's a free version, but it has very little space. And then another product out there is Ignite. It's very good at like, it looks like a file share. So you basically, when you go to your file structure, it's a very similar user interface to what we would do in what we do with the file share. Many of us are familiar with the file share. We have the S drive, the H drive. This Ignite mirrors that very well. So that's a very good product for that. So one of the things I say here is try to avoid the free version of these products because they limit on space and they also limit on functionality. So if you're using, back on the back slide, using Google or Microsoft products, they come with paid version of all these. They actually, the paid versions come in them. Especially for a business. So go to the next one. All right, we talked about this. Sorry, this slide is worthless. Okay. There's a lot of talk out there with cloud services, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. Have you guys heard of these? Cloud. Okay. You've heard of cloud. Okay. What Azure? Amazon Web Services, AWS. Azure is Microsoft Azure. And Google Cloud is Google's product. And what these are is servers in the cloud. So if you have an ERP system, or these are smaller, like if you have QuickBooks for your accounting system, and you want to do QuickBooks desktop, you can actually set up a desktop in Azure or AWS, and you can install it on a desktop up in the cloud. So you don't have to have a desktop sitting, like in your closet over there that's collecting dust or you forgot about it. You can actually do that in the cloud. That is not Google, that is not QuickBooks in the cloud. That is actually QuickBooks desktop installed in the cloud. Many people that are developers would do this for like their applications they would develop in one of these services. So there's huge advantages to these. They offer a server in the cloud, like I said. You don't have to worry about like uptime. You don't have to worry about power at your office. And it uses the same model that all the internet uses, software as a service. So this is just having a server as a service, is what it really is. So these are really, like, as you look to grow your company, these are things you'll look at. Communication platforms. We're using Zoom right now. So Zoom is a very ubiquitous now with COVID and all this time. So everybody pretty much knows how to use Zoom, pretty much. The other products out there, Slack is very much a communication tool. Like, I don't know if you guys use Slack or use Slack.
We're Teams.
Teams.
We're supposed to, I know.
Okay.
I use Teams.
Teams, okay, yeah. Slack and Teams are both very similar in products. They have channels, they have groups, and they have direct communication. One of the things about one I've noticed about with Teams, most people use it as a chat platform. They don't actually use it as a channel. And one of the things about using Teams is if you identify the channels, you can actually set up projects and different things that are happening in proper channels. You will actually get way better use out of it than just use it as a one-to-one chat program or a group chat program, because it just replaces text message is all it's really doing. But one of the things I like about Teams or Slack is I don't have to go to another medium of communicating with you. Like, I communicate with you via Teams or Slack. Those are like, we'll just say use Teams for this example. And you don't have to text me because it's getting to my phone because I have Teams installed on my phone. And so I'm not checking 6 different mediums of how you got contacted me. So one of the things that we do a lot in our company is we actually communicate via Teams for almost all internal communication. All external communication is done through our email, but most internal communication is done through Teams. You can actually bring your external consultants into your Teams channels and those kind of things. It does make it, you can actually talk to them directly, but that's, that's a thing. And Slack is a competitor. There's a free version of Slack. It limits you to 10,000 messages that are searchable, but then but it just drops off the last message. So if you don't have any compliance things, Slack is fine for the free version. So this is where IT consultants, we can play a role in here to help you set up those kind of things. So phone service. I have an old rotary phone here because I was thinking about this and I was like, why would we have a phone? Like, we have a desk phone sitting behind you right here. Like, why do we still have phones? And the reason is it's a very good question. Is if you're only a one-person team, if you're a really small business, a micro business, as I call them, then you probably don't need it. Your cell phone probably works totally fine. But once you get to grow outside of that one person, you have to think about the phone number that you're going to post publicly on your website or on your Google My Business. Right. Like, what is that phone number? Do you want your cell phone number posted all over the world? Probably not. I mean, right now with telemarketers calling us like, hey, wireless caller is calling you every 5 minutes. Do you really want that? So those are things to remind yourself when you get a phone number. And you can go, there's a lot of services out there, like there's, VoIP companies, there's Grasshopper, there's a lot of systems out there that will just give you a phone number and they actually forward to your cell phone, for like $5 a month. But it actually puts a public number out here that you can set out front of your phone system. And then once you get bigger, like let's say you have customer calling in, we're in the hybrid world right now. So we're having people outside, people inside, and you have 4 people out right now. So you're like, somebody calls in and they're like working from home because they're actually over COVID, but they can't come back to work. How do you transfer that call to them? It's like, well, right now, maybe if you don't have a phone system that's in the cloud, you literally just say, here, go to voicemail. And then it goes to voicemail and those kind of things. And nobody really wants to check their voicemail. So I'm not a voicemail person. So if you leave me a voicemail, I probably haven't checked it. So
Are you taking notes?
I'm taking notes, yeah. Also, when you're on vacation, how's your phone answering? Your cell phone? You're like, you want to really answer your phone by the pool in Mexico? Probably not. So that's another reason to have a phone system. Make sure you have one out front. As you grow, these are things to have in there. This one I kind of think about is, it's even like legal filings and other things like that. Once you get going, at first you don't really care, but once you move along, it's a really thing to really look at. And it usually gets forgotten because it's such a thing. It's so, like I have the rotary phone there because it's so old school.
Kind of static, it gets in the background.
Yes. Go ahead and next slide. Hybrid work. How many of us are doing hybrid work? I mean, all of us probably, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now, this meeting is hybrid work. Yeah. So Zoom, Teams, all great products. Google Meet's the tool that people use. Use these tools. Zoom is free for 40 minutes. You can pay Zoom for $15 a month is what the Zoom fee costs. And then the Google or Microsoft Teams, if you have Microsoft 365, it's included. So all the meetings that you can do on Teams or on Zoom, you can do on Teams. You can be publicly facing and you can get a phone number for them. You can do all the stuff you do on Zoom and it's free. So it's included in your package. So if you have a Microsoft Life 365 license, it's included in your package. And most people don't know this because Zoom is so ubiquitous, but it is a very good product and it's improving all the time. Microsoft's pumping serious money into it. So yeah, it's really a product to watch. But also, if you're going to do a meeting like this, my example is this, use a product you're familiar with. Don't go to a new product and change all the time. Like if you're going to go to Teams, like make that, have a little training and move forward. That's one of the things about small business that happens to us a lot is we'll jump into a product, we won't know anything, right? Then everybody starts going and down this road and like they've always done things this way, which isn't necessarily the useful way, but it's the only way we know, So it's like what I call before GPS. We have a back road where my parents live, and it saves like 15 minutes off the road if you go on it's like basically a triangle. And if you go the full way, it's all freeway. The back road saves you 15 minutes. But before GPS, my cousin came to our house. He couldn't figure it out because he didn't know where to go. So he basically drove an extra like 15 minutes every time he came to our house because he couldn't figure it out. But that's pre-GPS, and that's because like he didn't know that you were always going the same way. But make sure you know your platform. Training. This is a really big thing, I think, for small business owners, and tech is one of those things there's a million training videos out there, a million. And there's some of them are really good and some of them are terrible. So, but go on YouTube. That's what I have here. And you can learn, like you can learn things. You can learn, set up your new Wi-Fi at your house. Like go Google it on YouTube and go read it. Like just watch a few videos. They're probably like 20 to 30 minutes. And you can probably set up your Wi-Fi at your house. But as a small business owner, you know, think about that before, you know, it's like, this is something you want to invest your time. You know, like those are like, your time is your only value, you know, and you have a limited value of time. So just having somebody like, you know, come out and set your Wi-Fi, but also like, if you want to use Teams, go out and watch a quick YouTube video and like, how do I use this? And like making sure that like, and your team members do that. There's also Udemy. There's another great resource. It's a lot of free training. It's a really good source of training. There's quite a bit of other like different videos out there, but those two are actually pretty good. YouTube is a lot of junk, but there's also some very good stuff too. So
and Udemy is the same basic thing. It's just a site.
Udemy is all courses and they're all free, or not all free. They're like, it's freemium. So it's like a free level and then there's paid versions.
So it's its own website or it's
own website. Yeah.
Okay.
And I actually, a lot of tech courses are out there that are like, you know, let's say you've got a new job and you have your small business and you're trying to do Excel. They'll teach you how to do like a lookup function in Excel. You can go Google, you know, they'll have a course on Excel. It'll help you with Google, like Excel. And so those are really important as a small business owner, or even like any sort of tech person in a job. They're trying to do Excel or different type of things. So IT company, this is what we do. GSD Solutions, just for fair warning. Look, if you're looking for an IT company, ask somebody who they use. Like go to another business owner, say, hey, who do you know? Who, you know, what company are you using? You know, who are you using? Do you like them? What are some pros and cons of what they do? You know, those are things. Look for a company that is cloud focused, because I think in today's world, you want somebody who's like not on the bleeding edge, but on the front edge. Because if I'm out there doing the tech, you know, we're out there doing cloud focused stuff. We're going to help you guys drive you forward in your business. We're going to help those things. You know, when I talked about that slide back there with Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, and you're both like, cloud, you know,
yeah.
And those are things that like we, as a technology firm, we should be on the front teaching you about what's going on in the future, not going to you and asking you how to do something.
Right.
So make sure you look for a company that's cloud focused. The other thing I always tell people is, do you really need 24/7 support? Everybody always says 24/7 support. Who works at like 1 a.m.? Not many people. So be very careful with that kind of like, and you'll end up paying a premium for that kind of support. And it doesn't make any sense. Like nobody really wants to work at 1 o'clock in the morning, unless you're a huge company, you know, those are things, you know, but as we talk about, we're a small business. So we're trying to bridge that gap. So the other thing too, trust, but verify, you know, so trust their advice, but then Google it and make sure like, hey, that was really good advice they gave me, but trust, but verify. That's what I always tell people is like, listen to their advice, you know, and then Google it. Don't go ask somebody. It's like the whole thing is don't go ask, you know, Joe over there, what they're doing, what, you know, but just Google, like you'll get a pretty good response if you understand what you're looking for. And you don't always have to don't have to Google every single thing, but Google some things.
Yeah. Testing.
What?
Verifying. You're just testing and verifying.
You're just testing and verifying. Yeah. Okay. Can you guys know what two-factor authentication is?
Yes.
Can you describe it?
Not well.
You log in.
Log in.
And then you have to verify it on a different device. So I get like a little text message, a little code I have to put in. I can log into Facebook and our contact platform.
Okay.
It's like a backdoor. It's a redundant access point to verify you are who you are.
Yes. So when you describe it as over the top password, OTP is what that's called. If you go to the next slide, actually, that's the definition. It's something you know, password. That's like what you said, your password. And then something you have, that's the code, the over the top password, or it's something you are, which is the facial ID, it's your thumbprint, these kind of things. So those are those are what two-factor authentication is. The reason we do two-factor authentication is because your passwords are your kids' names. It's your street you live on. Like it's your, you know, it's things that are very guessable, and you probably reuse that password. How many of you guys reuse your password?
You don't.
You don't?
Everything's the same.
Everything's the same.
I don't.
Wow, that's really good.
You just come up with it on the spot.
She's a password manager.
No, I've got my own secret way of where I keep a list, but social media is where I started that. From there, there's very few times I use the same or tweak them all a little bit.
That's fantastic. So the reason that like I bring this up as a small business owner is bridging, is making sure that we have two-factor authentication turned on. Because if somebody did guess your password, like guessed your password, they'd have passwords to everything. With two-factor on, it's a lot harder for them to get in because they're getting that text message code, or they don't have your face, or they don't have your thumbprint or your retina scan. They can't do those things, but they can guess your password. So those are things that like, this is why you turn two-factor on, because you ultimately our passwords will get leaked. They will. That's not an if, it's they will. And just making sure that we have that turned on. This question is basically just making sure our data is how you can secure your data. I think the biggest one I'm going to focus on is number 3, is get a password manager. And like you have your method. Password manager is an app that will run on your phone that we can you can log in. And many browsers have this. Edge, Chrome, Firefox all have them built in. But what happens when you get on your phone? Like you don't have that password. Like or my wife's method, which drives me absolutely bonkers, is that she puts them in notes. So like if you think about it, it's unencrypted and like, what?
How'd you know?
But it's unencrypted and it doesn't have any sort of but it syncs to all of our iCloud. So she's like, oh, it's on all my devices. I'm like, yeah, it's just also sitting in plain text. So if anybody got your iCloud account, they have all your passwords. So anyway, that's what?
Oh no, I have they're all my notes on my phone.
On your phone, yeah.
Yeah.
No, the other one that people use is they use contacts in their email. They like make a contact for each password. So that's where a lot of people do it. Yeah. But go to the next slide. Password manager. So let's say the Modesto Chamber here, we have password manager for everybody. Let's say you use Keeper. We have a folder that has the marketing passwords in there. We can share them. They can all be two-factor turned on, and everybody can get the passcode, get the two-factor code. It doesn't go to a phone. Those are things you can do all this with a password manager. And then somebody leaves. You're like, okay, the password's 20 characters that nobody knows. I don't have to change it right away. I'm not as worried about that. As a small business owner, we have a limited staff, between 5 and 10, 20, 30 people. When somebody leaves, that makes a huge uproar of all the passwords that need to be changed for talk about social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. These are just passwords that are nobody thinks about, right? Small business owners. So making sure those get in there. They're all about $4 a month. That's about per user per month. They're not expensive. And there is free versions of them. They have for personal use, they're $1 to $2. For business, they're usually about $3 to $4. Let's keep going. I think the biggest question that I get today, I'll start with this question, and then you guys can add if you guys have any questions. I think the biggest question we get today is, what do we do with our files? And where do we put our files? Because those are so important to a small business owner, and because that's all their core of their business is in their files. And when I went back and we talk about OneDrive or Google Drive or Ignite, these, and making sure that those places that they put them there, and they understand how they're shared publicly and how they're shared internally, and you're not sharing the whole. Because what a lot of business owners are like, I don't want somebody to see the accounting folder, how we're doing or whatnot, and making sure that the permissions are set properly on those devices, and making sure that we have a product and they understand the permissions, so they're not, sharing it publicly, number one, and then sharing it internally to the wrong people. And so those are things that I think I get a lot of questions on, and I always tell people is those are things that have somebody come out and do. It really is as an IT services, and how we can bridge the gap is an IT firm, and GSD can do it, other IT firms can do it, IT consultants can do it, but making sure that they understand that piece and making sure that's set up properly. That's kind of the first question that we get. Let's answer that. So anybody else have any questions?
How safe actually is Google, the Google Chrome? Because I feel like I have every single browser on my phone, my laptop, my home laptop, all are the same browser. And I can see the history, I can log on to all the sheets, all my passwords for every single website I've ever been to are on the password manager.
Yeah.
How safe is that? That doesn't feel very safe.
It's as safe as your Google account is. So what's your password for your Google account? Same as all your other passwords?
No, it's different.
It's different. Do you have two-factor turned on?
No.
Okay. I would recommend turning on two-factor authentication, because that will secure up your Google account.
Because once that gets taken, all my passwords everywhere are.
Yeah. And there is Google has things out there, Microsoft has things out there. They stop logins for these things, and then they help us out, but also we always think it's like somebody else's problem until it's your problem. I mean, like there's businesses that are like there's a nonprofit that I know that had 5 people that got ransomware, and it was like 5 people, and they had, they didn't have a large fund, and like, they can basically, it really kills their business. And like we got called in to clean it up, but like basically after that it happened, like
the damage was done.
The damage was already done. Yeah. And so just doing things at the beginning really saves you a ton of time. Anybody else have any questions?
I had a question.
Yeah.
You were talking about our website and the 41%. What was that in reference to?
So we have a digital marketing firm that does our marketing, and like we had your website looked up, and I think it was like your digital score was like 41. Like it's your domain authority is what it's called. Mm-hmm. And like, when people do backlinks, I am not a digital expert, but like how you do backlinks, your domain authority helps you on the way you do backlinks. So that's why you would have that. Sorry, I'm like.
I suspect the dealership campaign helped drive that too. A lot of activity went through with the dealership campaign.
But that's really good for like when you talk to your members and like, hey, you're because like our website's posted on there, and like we can backlink to you, those kind of things.
Right.
And so like I would like those are things you could work with it. Sorry, I'm talking to you guys. Anyway, yes,
all good.
as a small business owner, it would be a good way for you guys to go out to the community and be like, hey, we can actually help, we can help you post on our blog or share a blog or whatever.
Right.
And you do those things back and forth. So I mean, those are things you can think about as you move forward.
Well, there's one thing we work with members that only applies to members, but if we have a database and it syncs through to our website. Yep. So if they really enrich their member profile on the database, if someone Googles their company, it is a secondary website. It actually pops up when they do a Google search. Modesto Chamber.
Scott Davison. Yeah. Yep. GST Solutions. Yeah, because we're in their database. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I had one. So what is a good way to come up with a strong password?
I use a password manager, and I click the automate my password, just random password.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that way I don't have to think about it. The only password I remember is my password to my password manager. I actually I don't know any of my banking passwords. I don't know any of my passwords except for my password manager. And my password manager is actually my favorite team that year. They'll never win the title. So, and a bunch of other characters at the end. But to be truthful, what I heard actually, there's an NPR article about this, is to use 3 words because it's really hard to guess. And if you just think about it like, golf, football, basketball, if you just did 3 words, it's really easy to remember. And it's also really hard to guess because it's long. And it really length matters. It's Dawood.
Yes.
What's your name?
You could say Daywood.
Daywood. Okay. Oh, Daywood. Okay. Yeah. Basically, if you use 3 words, it's really hard to guess, and it's really the length is what matters. If you look at the NIST password manager or the password rules, 16 is what they actually say right now is like basically unguessable with today's computer technology. So if you just did 3 words that added the 16 characters, it doesn't matter if you have all the special characters and whatnot. You
don't think it does?
It doesn't matter.
They always ask for at least 1 capital.
They always do.
At least 1.
But if you go read the rules, because it's basically all they're doing is like password generator stuff. It doesn't really matter. I mean, my password generator generates all like that because I don't really want to deal with the questions.
Right.
But it's all about length. 16 characters is what they say right now. So anybody else have any questions?
That was a lot of content. I feel like it was like data dump, rapid fire.
Sorry. I was going to go short, like the small.
You did great. Yeah. Oh, you did great. So as I mentioned earlier, this will be, we're recording this. So we're going to share it outward again, and we'll share it back to you when we have it ready. It'll be found on our website and promote from there. It was kind of a fun fact for Felicia and I to hear a number to our website. That was cool to hear. And where you started is accurate. The stuff we do and the way we do it today is the way we figured it out in the moment when we needed it, especially going into COVID. So not surprising there's other ways to do a lot of the things we do.
Yeah, and I think with small businesses, I think that's an important part to look at is how do you help them get, up that ramp? Like you guys do a lot of stuff with like digital marketing and other things like that. And it's a lot of talk is like on cybersecurity, and you're doing it's tool based. And what I always tell people is like the tools, most of the time you already own the tools. It's like how you use those tools and understanding how to use those tools. And those are things that I think is important to do when you look for small businesses, and understanding how the tool works and using the tool to its ability. Because like you don't need to go buy it. Like the problem is like we end up like we see the flashy thing. You know, it's like the red car that goes by. Like, oh, I want that. You know, like you don't really need that. You need to basically use what you have and understand how you use it. Like that's why I have the slide in there for training. It wasn't because I tried to skip over that. It's like truly like go Google something. Like look, spend 10 minutes, and you may get a good grasp when you call up your IT team and you say, hey, we want to use Teams for this function. Can you help us get there? You know, it's like you start by getting the training rolling, and then you call up because then you can get the second level. You get the base level knowledge, and then you get the second level. So that's what I always tell people is like, get yourself knowledgeable, and then then you can go to the next level. So
I actually made that call about Teams.
Yeah.
We're using it internally. It's especially because we've had so many moments where we're all remote. So that is our way to communicate in the moment. But at some point it's like also paying for Zoom licenses. Isn't there a way we could be using this in another way?
Yes.
So we don't have that ironed out, but I did make the call.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
And you can have call a number, and Teams has all that functionality that Zoom has, like every single thing, except for it doesn't, like, it's not as easy.
Yeah.
It actually is once you get it sorted, but it takes the first 5-minute hurdle.
So where does it apply when you're working with virtual meetings and you primarily use Zoom? You have a reason to be invited into a Teams one, and somebody is trying to get in and screen share something, and they'll get stuck. I'm not sure my system's set up for this. I'm trying to screen share, it won't let me. They all seem to have certain things different that almost enables you to
use Zoom. Yeah. So if you want to just know the biggest difference, if you're in a Teams meeting, the top right corner is where your share functions are. So if you click on there's a top right corner in a Teams meeting. In a Zoom meeting, it's all it's on that share bar, and that share bar usually resides on the bottom of your meeting. So if you think about that, it's so if you just say, hey, go look at the top function, top menu buttons. And the other thing about Teams, it's a little different, is it says share, and it has all these different windows.
Yeah.
And it's not as and so just hit screen one, or if you're on a computer, and just share your whole screen. That's the easiest thing to do. And just say, close all your other stuff and just share your whole screen. Because that way you're not having to worry about making sure this presentation is shared, or, making sure, and these are things that and making sure that Zoom, because most of the time in Zoom, we end up sharing our whole screen anyway. We just don't know, and right now we're only sharing the presentation, but in general, most people actually end up sharing their whole screen because it's just easier to click screen one. And Teams does exactly the same thing. It's a little bit different interface because it's on the right hand, it pops down this right hand window. So
I think I've also discovered that they're apps essentially on your system. So you can have sound and video turned on in a certain way and not know it through Zoom, and it may not be set the same in Teams the first time you go there. And then it's how come I can't hear anyone, or they can't hear me? And you don't know where to go in the heat of a moment to fix that.
That button in almost all applications is the ...
Oh,
so
yeah, of course.
It's the ... It's in Chrome. It's in it's the ... That's our menu button. So if you ever think about, especially in Microsoft applications, the 3 dots on Microsoft applications are almost always that help, the menu, the settings button. So
I've had the most issues with Teams.
Yeah.
I've never joined it on time, so it was connecting and I never get in. I was zoomed out through it. Yeah, can't do it. Maybe eventually.
Some organizations were trying not to use Zoom though, and trying to only invite you into your team. So it's security concern.
It's a security thing, yeah.
Right. And that's still an issue to some degree. I think
it's not as much. Yeah,
they cleaned it up one. We did discover, in the heat of a moment, what a Zoom bomb looks like, and it was not pretty. So early on in our process of going on to this, entertaining and uncomfortable.
almost all of them force you to password. It's defaulted into the adding.
So I personally don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Thank you. This is small and mighty group today. Content is just as important and worthwhile again, we will be sharing it out to make sure we share the wealth with others.
Thank you, guys.
See you next month. Thank you. Take care.